Hello YouTube, I'm Andrew Does Hair, and today I want to sit and look at some old photos that I've taken of haircuts from I don't know, 2012 to 2015, and just kind of pick apart my old work. So I went through some old hard drives and I dug all the way to the bottom of my Instagram feed, and I grabbed a couple random photos that I remember being very, very proud of at the time that I posted, but today I probably wouldn't take the photo and certainly wouldn't post the photo for various reasons. And so I kind of want to go through these photos and talk about what I was proud of at the time, what my intentions were, and how I would do it different now. I don't know, maybe it'll be educational or entertaining or something, but it's something that I've kind of mentally done a handful of times, and I think it might be fun to just sort of talk about it out loud here. So I'll be referencing my phone here for the photos we're discussing. This very first photo is from probably roughly 2012, 2013. The guy in the photo is actually Dre Drexler. Check him out on Instagram and YouTube. He's like a influencer guy, men's fashion, hair, lifestyle guy. And back then, I want to say he was like 15 or 16 when I was doing his hair. But during this time, it was very popular to just have super messy hair, long sides, texture everywhere. And I did that all day long. It was like my thing. We had a high school nearby, Santiago High School, and their mascot was a shark. And every kid at this high school would come to me to get their faux hawk. And they started nicknaming it the Santiago shark fin. So this look was super popular then, and I thought I was so good at it. I mean, I was doing them all day long. And when I look at this photo now, I can see so many things that are not up to par. But at the time, I was thrilled. I was so proud of this. When I look at this, I see areas that have quite a bit of product kind of bunched up in there. I definitely would not let a head leave the chair like that now. Back then, I didn't understand the importance of the blow dry, and I didn't fully understand what was happening with the flat iron, but the kind of approach that we had for this sort of messy hair, or at least I did at the time, is you would blow dry it because you had to have dry hair to flat iron it, and then you would flat iron it, and then you put some kind of matte product in there and squish it up everywhere to get that separation. But I wasn't fully blow drying hair, I wasn't thoroughly blow drying hair, and I wasn't evenly applying product. I was using the product to kind of sculpt the little shards and spikes everywhere. And so looking at this, I can see areas where the product was clumped up, and I can see dry areas where there just wasn't enough product. It's just very unevenly distributed. On top of that, I can see on the sides of his hair, it's not finished. It's puffy. Down hanging over the ears, you see like a very fluffy, feathery kind of look. If I were to do a look like this today, I would definitely flat wrap those pieces and just get them more smooth and polished, get them to like hug the head a little bit better and get a smoother finish on them so that it would kind of separate and move and not just be puffy hair hanging over the ear. Near the back of his head, over the crown, I definitely went too short there. I mean, it's not so short, but looking at it now, I can see that the composition of the haircut, there's a lot of weight up on top of the head, and there's not a lot over the sort of whorl area. And so I think today, if I were to do that, I would definitely leave a stronger corner there to kind of emphasize the shape of the head. This to me looks kind of like a shapeless blob of just spiky shards of hair, which is what it was. That's what I knew how to do back then. So that's a fun one. I haven't looked at that image in a long time, but looking at it now, I'm like, wow, I did it all wrong. And I thought I was so good back then, and I was so busy. I was so busy doing those haircuts, but I could do them better now if anybody wants it. All right, so this next image, probably 2013, 2014, the sort of short sides, very long top thing was just starting to get popular, and I was seeing it out and about in places. I remember being at a wedding one time around then, and like one guy had this long hair slicked back on top with shaved sides, and I was like, dude, that looks so cool. But then when this client came in and he basically had that and wanted to upkeep it, I was thrilled. I was like, dude, I get to do one of those short sides, long top haircuts. Part of the reason I wanted to get this photo back then is like it was just starting to become popular, and I was thrilled to be able to share that. Look, I'm doing the cool haircuts too. And so it wasn't like played out yet. It wasn't like, I mean, today I wouldn't post this just because it's been done so many times. But back then, this was so fresh. And now another three things that stand out to me looking at this. At this point, I had never done a fade. And so I didn't even attempt to fade this. And he wasn't adamant like, oh, I want to fade or anything. He just goes, I just want the side short and the top long. And if I tried to do this today, I probably would fade it, of course. But back then, I didn't know how to fade. So I just took like a number 1 or number 2 all the way up. And I did taper it a little bit. I remember trying to do the taper and putting in a line and panicking. How do I take out the line? Like I just was not a clipper guy. But another thing that stands out to me, the reason I posted this in the first place and the reason I was so thrilled to post it is a lot of the times when I would see these looks starting to come up, it was just really long hair on top, slicked back, and really short sides, faded or not. And what I did that was very slightly subtly different that I was so proud of is I actually round brushed the front of his hair and I teased it a little bit to just get that little bump in the front. And so while to the untrained eye, it's just long hair on top that's flowing back, but there's something about it that's just a little bit more shapely. And I don't know if anybody ever picked up on that, but I was proud of it. The fact that rather than just having a shapeless, formless blob of hair flowing back, I had a little bit of shape to the haircut. I mean, the silhouette of this, I didn't know anything about photography at the time, but I knew, like, I put that bump in there. I want to get a photo that shows that silhouette. And then the other thing about the silhouette is in the back where the hair is hanging, it might look like it's just falling to an arbitrary point. And when he came in, it was, but I trimmed it to hit just the deepest curve of the back of his head there so that the hair sticking out and protruding off of his otherwise bald silhouette is actually emphasizing a natural curve of the head that comes out anyways. And so it looks like an arbitrary point, but I was so proud that it hit just right in the middle of that deep curve there. That was a haircut that was a lot of fun. That was kind of a pivotal moment for me. And so I point out that I was so proud of the little bump in the front there. Everything I ever post from about this point forward, I had something about it that I was particularly proud of, or some reason that like this is going to get posted where something else might not get posted. Like there was a definite reason for posting. It wasn't just, oh, this is a good haircut that I did, so I'm going to post it. It was like, no, this haircut is doing this, and it says this, and it fits this. Like there was like a process to it, really. And so for this photo, that's what I was thrilled about. Okay, moving on. This next photo is Celeste, and if you follow my Instagram account, you've seen Celeste probably 100 times. This is one of the first times that I cut her hair, probably like the second or third time. And around this time, I was realizing like, oh my gosh, this girl really is down for anything. Like she'd get in the chair and be like, I don't care, do shapes, do lines, do whatever. So I was cutting her hair after work, so I had no time limit. And I went into this project thinking I could do anything. I'm just gonna put a line here. And then I'm gonna put a line right here. And then I'm gonna fade from here to here. And so I just kept like adding things to the haircut. And from the moment I started, I didn't have an end goal. I didn't know where I was going with it. I just knew that I got to be creative, and I kept adding things and adding things. And then when I went to style it, I just blow dried everything really, really meticulously and tried to get everything moving in some direction. And I kind of saw this little movement this way, and I was like, oh, I'm going to emphasize that shape. And I pieced out every little piece, and I just added feature, added a feature, added a feature. And then I thought I was so clever adding kind of a wet finish to that left side there as a juxtaposition to the otherwise matte finish everywhere. And again, I just added another thing on there. I just kept slapping things on with this haircut. And even at the point that I took this picture, I didn't know if I was done. I was like, well, what else could I do? What else could I add in there? What else could I throw in? And this is like a creative approach that I know works for a lot of people. I've had the pleasure of working next to Robert Braid a handful of times, and that guy is so freaking creative, but the way he goes into a haircut, he'll have maybe a general rough idea where he wants it to go, but you'll watch him like step back, look at it, add something, step back and look at it and add something. And I don't typically take that approach when I get to do creative cuts. I did for a while. I did during this era. This might have been 2014, 2015. And ultimately, after doing enough looks like that with that mindset and that approach of just like adding stuff and refining stuff and trying to control every aspect of it and what else, where else can I fit a detail? Where else can I fit a thing? And doing these like overly perfected, even if they are messy and imperfect hairstyles, started to feel really try-hard to me. And to me, try-hard is just not cool. Like early on in these, like with these photos in particular, you can see that I put a lot of effort into putting every piece of hair exactly where I wanted it. And then when I took the photo, the thought process is I worked really hard on this. I did a lot of technical work. I'm going to take a photo of the technical work and show everyone this movement and these pieced out pieces and this detail in the fade or whatever. And what I've evolved to kind of start doing more is rather than trying to showcase my technical work, I try to just create a mood or a vibe that the technical work just happens to be in. And so these early photos was like, here's a picture of my haircut, to where now when I take a photo, it's less about, look at every detail of my haircut, and I'm just more trying to create a vibe that my haircut just happens to be within. All right, so this next photo was roughly the same time, maybe a little earlier, maybe a little later, but I would kind of ping pong between this overly controlled, adding features to haircuts if I wanted to be creative. And then on the far opposite side, I would deliberately try to lose some control and just see what happened. And so with this particular haircut, as I was cutting it, I had the client's initial request in mind. He wanted a long top that would lay back and maybe have some volume in it. But when I went to style it after cutting it, I kind of blow dried every piece out and I round brushed it and got some volume and some bend in there. And then when I went to put the product in, I was like, hey, do you mind if I just style it kind of like weird and get a photo of it? And he's like, yeah, go for it. And so I just like noogied some product in there, a little bit heavy. I can see some clumped up product in some areas. And then once the hair was just kind of really messy, I loosely sculpted it into some kind of shape. And I very much let the hair just do what the hair wanted to do. And I was so proud of it. I was like, this is like controlled chaos. This is so messy. Looking at the fade, you could tell that was during the era before I really learned how to fade. But also like, I did keep in mind the shape of the haircut. But at the same time, I was so proud that I let the hair just be wild and be on its own. And that was the thing that stood out to me in that photo when I wanted to post it. I would say that approach, that kind of like let the hair go willy-nilly, is something that I've definitely hung on to over the years. And to this day, I control certain things that I know I can control. And then there's aspects of the styling where I really do just want to see what the hair does. And so today, a lot of my messier looks come about from the mindset that kind of sparked around this time, to where, like I said, I would put in the work with the blow dryer to polish it a little bit, but I wouldn't deliberately direct things in certain ways. I wouldn't try to have an answer for everything, and I would more so listen to the hair and let the hair give me an answer. All right, so this next photo, I guess kind of ping pong back to that Celeste mindset where I wanted to perfect every hair. His hair was actually really, really curly, and I wanted to see just how smooth I could get it. This was around the time when I really started focusing on blow drying and styling everybody to my fullest abilities. And so you wouldn't believe how curly this guy's hair actually is. And so I was so proud of how smooth I got this to look. Looking at it though, I definitely remember this era where, much like I said about that earlier Celeste style, I was trying to control every aspect of the haircut. I was like, I want this piece to go right here, and I want this piece to go right here. And a lot of my styles at that time were so overly sculpted and overly perfected. I would like round brush it for the foundation. I would tease it a little. I'd hairspray it, and I would sculpt every piece right where I wanted it to go. And nothing ever looked like it happened by accident, which is funny because my favorite hairstyles, like on just through history and hairstyles that I do and hairstyles that I see other people do, is hair that looks like it happened by accident. And so during this era, I guess I was kind of pushing and challenging myself to try to polish and perfect everything as much as I could, because I was really starting to have like kind of a little personal renaissance as far as understanding how much I could actually control the hair. Because I could control hair, I wanted to control hair, every aspect of it. And so a lot of the looks I was doing were very overly sculpted and overly, like if one hair was out of place, it was done so very deliberately. So this photo just brings back memories of those times. And then the next photo, another, ping pong back to the other side. The first time I ever did like a real photo shoot, such a cool experience. Ryan Teal, who's a NAHA winner, and if I'm not mistaken, a multiple NAHA winner. And if you're unaware of NAHA, it's like a big prestigious like award that you can win as a hairdresser. So Ryan Teal reached out to me and said, hey, I want to set up a photo shoot with you. And I had never done any kind of photo shoots or anything before. I was just a hairstylist working in a salon. So I flew up to Portland to meet him. And since I was flying, I didn't want to and it was just Portland and I was just there for like one night. I was like, I don't want to check a bag. And so I asked him like, hey, can I borrow product when I'm there? I don't want to like check a bag. And he's like, yeah, don't worry about it. I'll handle it. I got all the product you need. And so when I showed up at this shoot, he had a little tiny like sample jar of Layrite, like the one that looks like a Carmex jar, and he had a bottle of Shine Spray. And I was like, what the heck? I thought you said you had product. And he goes, dude, when you're doing photo shoots, you don't want to load the hair up with product, because throughout shooting, you're going to adjust the hair so much and change it so much, and you're going to get multiple looks out of these different people, that if you load it up with hairspray and pomades and gels, you're not going to be able to rework your stuff. And so I learned that weekend how to work with the hair and use very, very little product, because I needed to still move the hair. And so when you see a lot of these photo shoots and things, you'd be shocked how little product is actually in it, because again, it's just moved so much throughout the shoot. So I came back from that photo shoot with like this whole new perspective on styling hair, to where whenever possible, I would take hair with just water in it, and this photo has just water in it, and I would flick it with a comb and just see what the hair wanted to do. It was so interesting to me to, again, go to that far opposite, away from controlling everything, and be very mindful to listen to the hair and pay attention to the hair. And so I actually started a hashtag around that time that was no product, no hair. And whenever I had the chance, I would try to style hair without product just to really strengthen my control over what I can get hair to do. And so with just water in the hair, I would comb it around, I'd let it fall, I'd let it move, I'd see which way it wanted to part, and I would try to build, as to the best of my abilities, nice looking styles with just water, just for a photo. And then, you know, I'd actually style the client's hair to go out for the day. So I remember with this client, when he had just water in his hair after we were done cutting it, I was like, hey, do you mind if I get a photo real quick? And he's all, yeah, I guess. And after I got my photo, then I blow dried him and put product in it and styled it. But that's what this brings to mind. Okay, so here's a picture of Joe. This was during, I don't know, what was it, 2015 to 2017, when everybody was shaving parts and things in their hair. Now, I'm not a barber, and I don't come from like a culture of shaving lines anywhere. Like, I just didn't grow up doing that. And so when it became very popular to shave in parts and to shave perfect little squares around the hairline, that was so new and scary to me. And this was one of the first times that I actually did it and felt like I did okay. I was really proud when I did this. I was like, look how straight and clean that part is, wow. And actually looking at the fade here, at that time, that was probably the best fade I had ever done. Again, I didn't come from a barbering background. Fades were something that I learned later. And it was so hard for me for the longest time to take like really short hair higher up. And so he'd go, I want a high bald fade. And I'm like, okay. And the bald would go just right at the bottom because I was so afraid to take it short. Yeah, so looking at this, I just remember being terrified and frustrated with fades. I could not get fades because, you know, working in a salon around that time, some clients sometimes wanted fades, but if you worked in a barbershop, every client wanted a fade. So working in a barbershop, you're doing 15, 20 fades a day and not really styling necessarily as much and not really shampooing hair and blow drying hair. But working in the salon, at that time, like a quarter of my clients wanted fades, but they also wanted like the top cut and styled and they wanted a shampoo. And so rather than spending all day, every day, fade, 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 I got to do some fades sometimes. And so it was so hard for me to learn fades. But this picture takes me back to that frustration trying to learn fades. Okay, next photo. This is a long video. I'm sorry. I hope I'm keeping your attention here. This photo was fun. The client came in with very, very straight, coarse hair, and it was pretty short, about the length that it is right now in this photo. And he said, I want my hair to lay back and over, and I want like short sides. And so I was like, okay, I'll try. And I knew at that time that blow drying hair a whole bunch could help it to lay down and help it to change direction. And so when I was done with the cut, I started blow drying his hair back. And it wasn't laying back. And I kept blow drying it back, and it wasn't laying back. And for like 10 minutes, I just blow dried his hair back, and it kept sticking up. So finally, I was like, you know what? This actually looks cool. And I just like noogied some product in there. And the texture that I got out of it, like I didn't go for a texturized cut when I was doing this. I did soften up the ends a little because the color of his hair is light, and light hair tends to show a lot of cuts and chops. And so I was trying to disguise some of my cuts by softening it up a little. But I wasn't going for like a texturized look. I was going for a slick back look on hair that just wouldn't slick back. And so lots of lessons learned there. I was like, okay, your hair's too coarse and too short to lay back. Grow it longer if you want it to lay back. But in the meantime, this actually looks really cool. So I took a picture of it. And this picture, this particular photo, didn't really do much on social media, but later I posted a tight crop of the same haircut, and that one went like absolutely viral in, I don't know, 2014, 2015. Like all the big barber pages reposted it, and it was one of my like big hit images, and it happened by accident. I didn't go for that look. I was trying to slick his hair back, and it wouldn't slick back. All right, this picture of Jason here was a big turning point for me because I was very happy with the cut. I was very happy with his look. I felt like we gave him a style that was fitting to him. There's like the suitability was great, but when I look at the photo, this was the first time it became apparent to me that like, oh, I need to start thinking about my photos. There's people standing in the background, there's crooked horizons, he's really, really tightly cropped. There's a bit of a claustrophobic feeling looking at it now to me. And it just bothered me that I had this great haircut on a great looking model and I wasted the opportunity to get a good photo of it. And so as I started learning photography, I kind of kept going back to this photo that bothered me. Like, what can I do better? Okay, at least have straight horizons. Okay, at least wait till there's not people standing in the background and put a little more effort into curating your shots. And so as you know, I spend a lot of my energy and effort doing photography, and it's just fun for me. But this photo was a turning point where I was like, okay, let's see what happens if I actually care about the photo. Okay, and finally, this is our last one. This is a photo I took off my Instagram account that has an image from 2012 and an image from 2017. And the intention of this image was to just kind of like, for one, when I looked at them side by side, I was like, wow, I have gotten better at hair. And so that's just a fun thing to look back at your old work and realize you've gotten better. And to me, I thought it was just a pretty dramatic statement about why your barber raises their prices. You know, I see so many resources talking about why prices need to go up, and you know, oh, my cost went up, so your cost is going to go up, and just different, and like these big deep explanations about why a haircut's more expensive. And I thought that putting these two side by side would just be, without any words, an explanation like, hey, I used to cut hair like that, now I cut hair like this. That's why I'm more expensive. But anyways, looking at these two pictures side by side, the obvious thing is, okay, the fade is better on the right. Duh, right? But what I'm looking at and remembering, being the hairstylist who did the photo on the left and the one who did their hair on the right, on the same model, of course, Joe is beautiful. On the left, I didn't know how to style hair. His very, very curly hair was left kind of curly. I remember trying to flat iron it. I didn't know how to use a blow dryer to flat wrap hair, which would have actually straightened and smoothed his hair way better. He just, you know, he hated his curls, and that was the best we could do to give him like straight hair. And so that's just like the biggest difference to me. Granted, on the right, his hair is longer, so it's easier to straighten longer hair, but the finish work is like non-existent on the left. I think a lot of people would look at the two and go, oh, the fade's better on this one. Okay, duh. But look at the finish work. Look at how the hair is polished. And so when I look at that, I realize like, okay, I really have not necessarily, obviously technically improved over the years, but my priorities as far as finishing a haircut have definitely changed. Like, I will not let something leave the chair if it's not finished, if it's not styled to the best of my abilities, whether that's a casual, loose, messy style or a very meticulous, clean, neat style. I definitely spend more time with a blow dryer now. Another thing that I look at here is the photo in general. I mean, the first picture, I had never even thought about photography, and I was just like, let me get my phone out and take a snapshot here. But in the photo on the right, I knew if he was standing out in front there would be light coming in through those front windows and essentially overexposing the bald area on his head compared to the front of his face. And I knew that visually would make the fade pop a little bit more, and even kind of disguise my technical abilities at being able to fade. Like, if you're blasting light up at the bottom of a fade, it makes it look smoother, and I knew that when I took this photo. Point being, lesson here, go look at some of your old work. Compare, like if you happen to have photos of the same client 5 years ago and now, compare them. Look at what you've gotten better at and feel good about it. What this whole thing, sitting down and doing this exercise today, has done for me is helped me to feel good about what I'm deciding to do moving forward and what I'm focusing on moving forward. And it's also made me want to revisit some of my older methods, like the overly meticulous, tight styles. Like, maybe I want to try that again. It's been a long time. I've been so casual with my styling lately. Maybe I do want to just perfectly sculpt something again. If you hung in there until the end of this long, boring video, I thank you. Please like and subscribe and all of that. Thanks for watching.